Welcome to Halloween Gospel with Rabbi Darin Katz. Before we begin this conversation, there's some things you need to be aware of. This conversation might frighten you. It may require you to ward off some of the dark spirits in your own soul. It will cause you to look deep within yourself. No, I'm not talking about jack-o'-lanterns or entering abandoned asylums. I'm talking about something different. Something you've never considered before. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Hi, my name is Caleb D. Wilson. I believe that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, and welcome to Halloween Gospel. Here I have with me Rabbi Darin Katz. He's my rabbi from Katz Yeshiva. So, Darin, I want to ask you this right off the get-go. You were the one who pitched this idea of a Halloween Gospel. I have to be straightforward with you. I am quite skeptical of the idea of Halloween Gospel. In fact, I've even marketed this on Messianic Monday last week, and I had a lot of people who were saying, Halloween has nothing to do with Judaism, and don't celebrate Halloween. And so I wanted to get your understanding. What are you on about? Halloween Gospel, really?
Okay. Yeah. I think one of the first things is to say is that when you're trying to teach people difficult content, I don't know if that's the word I should use, religious content, wherever it is, especially in a rabbinical sense, you're constantly looking for examples of how to present not just contentious issues, but really just anything. I mean, that's what parables come from, is trying to make stories in order to present concepts that are either, like I said, difficult to understand or just put people more in touch with the reality of what's going on around them. Now, maybe at a later point in this interview, I'll give you a good question to ask me, which is, hey, what's your history with things like Halloween, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, all of those? So maybe we hold on to that for later so that it'll help your listeners better understand. Oh, okay. Now, I'm not suggesting they should absolutely get super excited about what I'm going to say, but I'm going to do my best to do a good job of this. And I'll tell you this. I look at the concept of Halloween, and there's no, look, I'm not going to hide it. Of course, there's terribly concerning elements to this concept. But here's where I want to dive into first and get your opinion, and I'd be very keen to see what your viewers will have to say in comments about this. I won't jump into the comment section. The only comments I'm willing to make, I'll make now. And if you feel like making your life interesting, you can engage with them in the comments. So sorry for that ahead of time. But here's what I will say. I was thinking about it, especially recently. It's something I've been asked about, from the ministry groups. It's something I've been asked about over the years. And here's the first thing, like the first motivating factor for me looking into this more intentionally, is that I've had so many people who are petrified of this time of year. Same way they start feeling when it comes to Christmas time. Same way they feel when it comes to Easter or Valentine's Day or any other potential day where there is a darker, controversial, whatever element to things. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, what do we do at this time of year? And my thinking is, I think you live. I think you pursue shalom. I think you just try and stay at peace with everyone. Okay, so that's the nutshell answer. More specifically, especially this year, in fact, I've been looking at it because on social media feeds, I've been picking up a lot of chatter about it already. Now, I'll give you an example. Quite literally what motivated this, to be quite honest. I came across a guy on social media who is an ex-Satanist. So full on, he's now a Christian and he loves Jesus, which is nice to see. But okay, so he was an ex-Satanist. And honestly, this is going to sound very crazy, but he did one. Sorry, there was one video that he did where he literally says to someone who was interviewing him, literally. So kind of like a setup like you and I are doing now. And the person says to him, like, hey, so tell us about Halloween. And you know it's a setup for what was going to come next. And literally his words were, Halloween is the highest day for Satanism on the calendar. I've heard stuff like that said before. Okay, so I know and I understand that obviously for dark cultic purposes, a day like that is very valuable. That's to be expected. I know, and I know from, let's just say I know. That's okay for now. And I looked at this and just instantly I thought, you know what? I've got no doubt this guy means well. I'm sure he does. He's campaigning for Jesus. Great. But there's this other potential reaction to a video like his. And that reaction could be fear. Does that make sense? Like, oh, it's Halloween. Like, you better anoint your house at this time of year or do something, because people literally are getting scared. And I'm of the opinion, no, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared of Halloween. And then I looked into it more. Like, I thought, okay, like if I'm going to tackle a topic like this, where and how would I tackle this topic? And so logically, I've got the Strange Gospel podcast, which is literally set up. It's literally set up for the purpose of tackling the more odd things about our faith. So like that's its purpose, is to have a little safe space to say, okay, these topics are a little bit strange within the gospel, but they're a little bit more strange. It's not mainstream that people would be expecting. So let's put it neatly in this little package here. And then those who want to explore it are not going to get shocked. They know what they're getting into. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, I'm tracking with you so far.
Okay, so that's why I'm doing it in that space. So the Halloween gospel idea, and I'll give you the core pitch line of season 4, which is the Halloween gospel on the podcast that's coming. And then I want you to tell me, and this is great, and I want your listeners to know that you and I have not discussed this at all. So I know your reaction will be as authentic as possible, which is great. That's what I wanted. I want this to look like a cheesy setup. Here's what I did, Caleb. I looked at the concept of Halloween, and we all know Halloween. There's a whole lot of elements to this, like it's all over the place, the images, all of that. But here's what struck me first. The most common images for Halloween. Now, maybe for you in the States, I don't imagine it's much different. But I'll tell you, for me in New Zealand, here's what comes firstly to mind. Jack-o'-lanterns. Carving pumpkins. Okay. Graveyards. Death. Blood. Spiritual things. Okay? Am I right, wrong? Is that a fair reflection of the baseline of Halloween for you too?
Yeah, no, that's what I expect from Halloween.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you another analogy here, and I want you to tell me what am I describing? spiritual things again. So I'm going to give you a narrative here. People coming back from the dead, out of graves, demons, spirits, blood, eating, well, effectively the concept of cannibalism. Now, I need to say this to you, not that I want this to necessarily influence your answer to me about whatever I just described to you. I will admit to you, undoubtedly, another thing that might shock people, I'm a huge fan of apocalyptic kind of movies, using that term in the way it's traditionally used, which means like the world's come to an end, you're going to survive, a virus has broken out, and there's a zombie infestation because of some bad virus that's come out, and the dead are coming back, and you've got to I love that stuff. Like, I really do. I think I love the psychological idea of surviving what should kill you, I guess. Okay. So that stuff influences me. But with those terms I've just given you, do you know what I'm actually describing with those terms? So I'll say it again. Eating human flesh, coming back from the dead, demons, spirits, blood. Yeah. Good versus evil, all of it. What do you think I'm literally describing when I say that now? Like, I've got a thought in my head, literally what I'm describing. What would you think it is?
Well, I was thinking in terms of like, would all those things fit into scripture? Like, I was thinking when you said the eating of the flesh, I thought about Jesus eating the flesh. Good and evil, obviously, that's a theme in the Bible. Um, uh, I can't remember the other things off the top of my head what you said,
Yeah,
but they all seem
demons.
like demons. Yeah, demons, obviously in the Bible.
Graves.
Graves. Yeah, I think. Graves.
Can I surprise you, Caleb? You spot on. Now, to the audience, well, he's describing Halloween. To you, I'm describing scripture. Who's right? You or the audience? Both of you are right, because they both cover those themes. So here's my point. And yes, it is a challenge to the wider community to calm down and not empower something that doesn't need to be empowered the way it gets empowered. So let's look at it again. When I think of Halloween, jack-o'-lanterns. Now fine, there's history about this and there's superstition behind it. But here's what I don't think people realize. In Judaism, we have got so much superstition. We've got amulets. We've got things like that, it starts getting dodgy very quickly, actually. So my question is, what's more complicated? Carving out a pumpkin that's supposed to ward off evil spirits? Or in Judaism, what we call a hamza, which is a hand. You might have seen it. There's like always these images. You might even be up for editing purpose, Caleb. I even suggest that even while I'm saying this, you might want to flash on the screen a picture of a hamza, which would be a hand beautifully decorated. And the symbolism it looks is like what it seems to be saying, which is to ward off evil spirits. That's in Judaism. Now, I'm not saying that as a Messianic Jew I promote that, right? Like, because I don't. But here's the question. Are there evil spirits around us? Are there demons? Are there things that intend to harm? Yes. Do I understand the intention behind using amulets and things like that to ward off evil? Yes. I get it. Right? So in Messianic Judaism, though, do I promote that in Messianic Judaism for us? No. Why? Because we have the Spirit and we have Jesus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was curious about what you meant by amulets, but I think one of the things I thought about was isn't isn't the mezuzah, isn't that the thing that you put on the outside of the door? Isn't that something can you explain what mezuzah is? It's something outside the door, right?
Effectively, depending on how you look at it, a mezuzah is like an amulet too. So what a mezuzah does is we keep scripture in it, which represents our commitment, our covenant with God, and it's a beautiful image. It's not, here's the interesting thing. This is where talking about tradition is so important, and where it's valuable, where it's not, and where just to let it go if it doesn't work for you. Nowhere in scripture are we told, put a mezuzah on your door. Nowhere are we told, literally, hey, put this mezuzah in this way, roll up the scroll, have it blessed. When you come in and out of your house, kiss it or touch it or acknowledge it, as in you come, you're going between. And note why we put it by a doorway. Because a doorway is literally, it's a portal, it's a threshold, it's a entry and exit. That sounds spiritual again, because it is spiritual. You get what I'm saying? So all of this stuff is there. I do it as a Messianic Jew because I see the beauty of it and I love the idea of it. Do I take spiritual comfort from it? Yes. Is it any different to Christians who put Bibles up in their houses, or people put crosses up on their walls in their homes? No, it's actually not different. It's the same kind of thing. So I'm going to go back to it again and ask, I'm not saying put a carved pumpkin out on your front door because it scares away spirits. Like, that's an old tradition that certain cultures who are just as superstitious as we are today. You and I, Caleb, would not want to invite demons into our house. We would take action. We would take actions we believe avoids that, right? Are we not then being superstitious too? Of course we are. We're being careful. Is there a good reason to be? Yes. Is there danger in getting obsessed with it? Yes. So there's moderation in all of this stuff. So again, I go back to the idea of Halloween, and I think to myself, if the concept of Halloween, at its core, its most popular items, let's talk most popular. And in talking about most popular, I'm going to talk about what's not so good either, because that's only fair. But Caleb, if the most popular items of Halloween is the jack-o'-lantern, which traditionally wards off evil spirits. Now again, let me answer the question that's very important. Do I believe a carved out pumpkin with a candle inside of it wards off evil spirits? No, of course not. That doesn't work. But you know what, Caleb? Every time I see a jack-o'-lantern, guess what I think? I think, man, there's a reminder that we are in a spiritual battle daily. I don't have to wait for Halloween. Like, it's every day. Okay? Now, I'm not interested in promoting Halloween. That's not what I'm doing. If I was, I'd go into the history of it right now and show that there's some interesting origins. Yes, there's other stuff mixed in too. But interestingly enough, the people who have made it popular in modern culture are actually religious people. People who love Jesus. Now, again, I don't get paid to promote Halloween. That's not my intention. My actual intention with this whole program is to say, let's first, let's pull the teeth out of the lion so that it can make a lot of noise, but we really don't have to be too scared of it. And then I also just want to be realistic. Again, my business as a rabbi, as a teacher, is I've got to talk about a man. And yes, there's metaphorical nature to this. It's not literal, right? But I've got to talk about a man who said, eat my flesh and drink my blood. After I'm going to die and come back from the dead. I've just described the plot for a zombie movie. In the Gospels, When Jesus is resurrected, the graves open up. Dead people come walking out and rock the worlds of the people in that area. If you're not a spiritual person and I tell you that story, you're going to say, what? There's zombies in the Bible? To this day, there are people who don't trust the Bible, and especially the Gospels, because they can't get over the fact that Jesus says, eat my flesh and drink my blood. Literally. I mean, Caleb, literally in our Gospel, there are people who Jesus said that to that said, yeah, this is too much. This is weird. Jesus didn't even bother clearing it up for them. He didn't even bother clearing up, guys, I'm talking metaphorically. You hear what I'm saying? So again, here's the thing. Graves. Let me ask you a question. If you were to talk to me as a potential believer and you had to talk about what I'm offered in the gospel in terms of death and life and all of that, and I have a fear of death, tell me how you'd sell it to me. Using scripture, using the gospel, think of the theme of death in the gospel and how Paul uses it later. How could you put me at peace if I say, I'm afraid of dying, I want to turn to religion, but I'm not sure how to deal with the death issue?
I mean, I would think I would say something like, you'll die a physical death, but if you are given salvation by Jesus, you will not ever have to die a spiritual death.
Thank you. Perfect. So here's the question again. Halloween is obsessed with graves. It is. It's a big part of it. Part of that reason is because at Halloween, watch this odd thing. It's believed that the spirits for that day, for that time, come out of the graves. Oh, that's satanic, right? Okay. Go and read Jesus and go read Paul. What does Paul literally say? The dead in Christ will rise. Paul literally talks about spirits coming out of the graves. Now, my point is again, am I actually trying to promote Halloween in its own little package? No. What I'm mainly trying to say is, don't sensationalize the negative side of something that doesn't have to be sensationalized in some isolated space. You get what I'm saying? So for me, for example, I see the graves. I mean, I walk in our local, like, what would be to you, Target or something. We've got a place called the Warehouse. Caleb, you can't walk down an aisle and not bump into a skeleton or a jack-o'-lantern on something, or bats, or a gravestone. Okay, so what should I do? Should I just collapse in absolute fear because it's Halloween season again? Or can I walk around that and say, yeah, spirits, death, life, blood. Man, that sounds like my faith. Like I can look at that stuff and I don't have to be scared. I can look at that stuff and I don't have to feel like it's my job to rid the whole world of Halloween. I mean, I walked down the aisles, Caleb, I did it yesterday, and you know what I saw? I saw kids excitedly choosing costumes. I saw kids grabbing different items that, yes, has the jack-o'-lantern on it and all of that. Should I run up to them and rebuke their parents? When all they're doing is like, hey man, chill out. My child wants to buy this vending machine costume for Halloween. What are you on about? You get what I'm saying? And that's that's where I've got experience in this. I've gotten myself into serious anti-secular holiday things, Christmas, Easter, all of it, like over the top. The intention was good, but the damage it does. I don't know. Is this making sense to you?
You're talking about, I guess, the outlook that us as believers should have towards Halloween and those maybe who are celebrating some of the darker themes that Halloween has. Is that what you're basically saying?
Yeah. So think about it this way. To the parents who are excitedly getting Halloween costumes for their kids and deciding what bucket to use for the trick or treating, should we see those people as seriously evil human beings? Like, is that the baseline logic we should be projecting onto them?
No.
You get what I'm saying? Now, I struggled with this for a while, honestly. In fact, last year, I'll be honest with you, last year was the first time I actually just said, you know what, I'm going to try something different. And I left, like, we call them lollies, like candy outside. And you know what shocked me? The number of people I got to meet from the community. Kids coming up with different costumes. And okay, yes, let me say this. There are costumes that I wouldn't advise. Like obviously demonic stuff for witches. I'd probably comfortably say, yeah, no, that's where I would draw a line. Like if you ask me, okay, because that, but Caleb, last year, literally, the warehouse, this place I'm talking about, Caleb, you could dress up, the kids can dress up like a vending machine. Can we analyze that one quickly? A vending machine where their face sticks out at the top. Does that sound evil to you?
No, not at all.
You know what that sounds to me like? That sounds to me like people having fun. I don't think it's fair to jump to the conclusion that they're undercover Satanists. Like, I think that's, do I believe that Satanism and things can, of course they can use it. But do you really think they need Halloween for that? Like, you think that's the only time they need that? There's any time of, so I'm not promoting Halloween for the sake of Halloween. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's necessary to lose your mind in fear and get worked up. Honestly, Caleb, what I considered last year and the year before and all of that was, do I put up a sign and say, this house does not celebrate Halloween? And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Okay. What does that look like to the general public, though? Now, remember, I'm not saying what does that look like to Satanists. What does it look like to the general public? Okay. So our kids just want to walk around and get some lollies, candy. You the Grinch on the street. Now, I can hear in the background people saying, oh, we have to stand up for Jesus. Okay. How do you also minister to the people around you if you isolate yourself from them? So these would be the people that on the 31st of October, and literally, let's be fair, let them define why they do what they do firstly, right? Like, I mean, they have the right to do that. So if they do that, Caleb, 31st of October, they do that. 1st of November, I come out my house, I go knock on your door. You're my neighbor. You've got kids. Watch this. Watch the irony of this. And I'm making an extreme example, but I think it's a fair example to make. Your kids answer the door. Hi, kids. I'm from next door. Can I talk to your daddy or your mommy? Now, kids being innocent, they'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll go call them. You come to the door. I don't blame you if you're a bit confused. When I say to you, hey, Caleb, so good to see you, brother. Listen, just want to let you know that our church is having a special service this coming Sunday, and I'd love for you and your family to pop by. If you turned and said to me, sorry, Darin, you got to help me out here. Last night, you had a sign on your house that you don't want anyone coming in because you don't celebrate Halloween. The next day, for the same reasons you didn't do that, you inviting me and my family to church or to synagogue. That's daft. Now, here's why it's daft. I don't get to live permanently in the headspace of I judge everything by what I think, right? Okay, so I say Halloween is wrong. I say it's ungodly or whatever. Okay. Do I have evidence, Caleb, that when you brought your kids around dressed as, even if your daughter was dressed as a demon and your daughter was dressed as a witch and your son was dressed as a demon in a costume, does that justify in the moment that I should assume Caleb and Reagan and their kids are Satanists who have come over to my house and their intention is to put a curse on my house and they're there to destroy the knowledge of God on the earth? Is that a logical jump away point for someone like me to take? What do you think?
No.
You get what I'm saying? Now, I have no doubt, and I apologize in advance for probably the trouble you'll take on your comments for this. I know the rhetoric. We've got to be the light in the darkness. I agree completely that we do. I'm not promoting Halloween for the sake of Halloween. What I'm saying is, you don't need to be so scared. If you have Jesus, if you are on the right side of things, then rightly judge. I'll be open. Let me be honest with you. My son, I've told you about my son. My son is autistic. He has had serious issues with how people perceive him or how he dresses, because it's all very real to him. Last year, part of my experiment, I allowed my son to go trick-or-treating, which even in my own head when it happened. Now, I didn't go, and it's not for any spiritual reason. It's actually ironically because I'm autistic, and the idea of knocking on a stranger's door is more scary than demons on Halloween. Let me just tell you that. That if you want to scare the hell out of me, say, hey, Darin, why don't we go knock on strangers' doors and ask them for lollies and candy? I'm like, okay, there we go. That's Halloween to me. we don't need the 31st of October to get that reaction out of me. Do you know what was insane? My wife said to me, Amanda said to me, do you think we can get him to engage with other kids he doesn't know? Do you think? And I said, I don't think it will work. Well, was I knocked over with a feather, Caleb, when he excitedly came home from warehouse with his mother the one day, excitedly showing me his costume for trick-or-treating. I'm a Star Wars fan, he knows it, so guess what he chose? A stormtrooper outfit. Now that's a whole other topic on its own. Because in the Star Wars universe, effectively the concept of a stormtrooper it's connected to things like Hitler and the Nazis in a way. There's undertones of that in it. So now should I tremble again because a symbol of what could be linked to Nazism is now in my house in the figure of a white stormtrooper? If I want to, Caleb, I can hide under my bed permanently because there's something around every corner to be scared of. Here's what happened though. I was like, okay, he's excited about the suit, but this isn't going to happen. Like, it's just not going to, he's going to end up sitting next to me panicked every time the door gets knocked on because why people here? Why would people come to our house? Caleb, the fright I got on Halloween was a good fright. He got dressed up, took his little bucket, and he went with his mother. They came back like over an hour later. He had met new kids. He had spoken to people on the street. Caleb, he knocked on the people's doors. You want to talk about me getting a fright? My son knocked on people's doors, smiled, and asked them for lollies. I'm like, can we do this every day? You get what I'm saying? Now, yes, for those who want to focus in on the negative, is there negative? Yes, I've mentioned some of it already. Witches, demons, yes. Cauldrons. Do I promote those elements? No. Why won't I promote them? They are clearly, exclusively demonic. Their intention is to clearly promote, aggravate the parts of the darker side of what's in the gospel for the dark side, if that makes sense. It's not. So there's two ways to look at gravestones at Halloween, for example. There's the fear of the dead. There's the worshipping of the dead, which is not what we would promote, right? Or there's the, when I see that gravestone, I think of Jesus coming out of the grave. I think of the hope we have that we'll be resurrected. Now, am I trying to sanitize the entire nature of Halloween? No. That's not what I'm not interested in doing that. But here's the thing, Caleb, because I've been very staunch in the past, and again, it became even clearer for me being a father of kids. I saw the pressure I put on my family, and then they get nervous. Oh, it's coming close to Halloween, or it's coming close to Christmas. What's Dad going to do? Is it going to be more scary to live in the house with him and be scared of offending him inadvertently when we're not attempting to, just to try and avoid Easter, Christmas? Caleb, I can tell you, you want to talk about Halloween stories? I can tell you horror stories where I've gone out of my way to tell people at certain times of the year, we are Jewish, we don't do Easter. No Easter eggs, please. We are Jewish, we don't do Christmas. No Christmas presents, please. But you know what I quickly realized? Not everyone thinks like I do. The people who wanted to give my kids Easter eggs were not trying to promote Ishtar. They weren't saying, oh my word, we just brought this from a coven. We'd love to curse your family. They want to give kids a chocolate egg. They want to see the kids look for the chocolate egg in a yard. So what do we do, Caleb? Do we demonize everything? Is that what we do? Do we rob the peace and the harmony from the very people who we want to share Jesus with? Is that because that's so if you push hard enough, Caleb, and you can, and there are people that are, and there are people that will this year, and they will next year, and all of that, and I understand their motivation. But my point is, do I put all my energy into fighting Christmas, Easter, Halloween, Valentine's Day, all of that stuff? Is that where I put all my energy into? And what do I get out of it if I do that? I walk into either the warehouse or this other place. We've got farmers. Caleb, if you walk into farmers, it's another store. You might think you've walked into the North Pole and you've walked into Santa's factory, because I think there's more Christmas trees and all of that than there is clothes or makeup anymore right now. So when I walk into this, should I have a panic attack? Should I have the equivalent of a rape whistle on me for the spiritual side and just start blowing it and fall to the floor because I'm standing next to a Christmas tree? You get what I'm saying? And again, like I say, what I've watched over the years is the panic it puts in my family. I've watched our extended family, out of respect for me, actually, even, which is so amazing, these people that I think are so evil, out of respect for me, start asking Amanda, hey, what's acceptable to do this year? Like, can we hug the kids? Can we say Merry Christmas? Can we say Happy Festive Year? Caleb, I've put my foot down over the years. It hasn't led one person to Jesus. Ironically, for the most part, the people I interact with are people that already believe in Jesus. And all it's done is made those times of year very difficult for me interacting with them, for them interacting with me, for my kids interacting with them, for my wife who understands me, but also just thinks that, okay, people want to give a gift around the 25th of December. They really aren't trying to revive a satanic holiday. Now, again, I'm saying this to you, and no doubt I will feel the passion of certain types of revolutionaries. I don't even need to hear what they've got to say. You know why? I've said it before. Caleb, I made memes about it. Like, very direct. Am I sorry I did all of that? No, I'm not actually, because I had to go through it. Maybe everyone needs to go through that. Maybe that's what they need to do. I'm just saying, at Halloween, I think I can spin a part of it. I think I can spin fundamental parts of it where I can say, I can still breathe on the 31st of October. And I can take actions that don't isolate me from neighbors who don't care that there's a satanic possibility in Halloween. You get what I'm saying? They really don't care. Should I give them something to think about? Like, should I accuse them of that? Should I accuse them of being occultists now? Like, is that reasonable to do? And I mean, I'm putting the question out there, and I'm sure that there's people in your audience that will say, yes, that's exactly what you do. I'm like, okay, I guess I won't see your kids knocking on my door on the 31st. I'm okay with that, if you're okay with not coming around. But I feel like, and I used to do this, I feel it's unfair to project onto you things that you haven't said yourself. If you put candy out, now watch here, here's the options, and I think this is what it was for me as well. You know, in the group, you might even remember who it was, but people in our group in years gone by that have kids have said, oh my God, what do I do? It's Halloween. And I thought, wait a minute. What if we put up a gravestone in your front yard, and then just to be a little bit cheeky, you put scripture on it? The dead in Christ will rise. Is that not proactive? Like, is that not a interesting thing to do? What if you made little bags of candy and you put John 3:16 on it? God so loved the world, the cheesy stuff that everyone knows. Is that wrong to do? Like, is that immoral to do, or is that potentially strategic? I think it's potentially strategic. And so for the Strange Gospel podcast season 4, that's literally what I'm going to go into. Now, more than what we've done it here. I mean, I have to be fair. This is just a interview. We can't go into all the depths of what I want to go into. Yeah, that I'll do on the podcast. I'm happy on the podcast season 4 to note, okay, let's look at the actual combined developed history of Halloween. And then I'll gladly note, here's the clear negative stuff, okay, because clearly there is. But hey, did you know about these things? Did you know about these other things that in actual fact, not that I'm Christian, but in actual fact, Christianity has had a big part to play in influencing the development of Halloween? I don't think people know that. You know, so, and again, I'm not a representative for Halloween. I'm just seeing an opportunity as a rabbi after seeing a guy talk about Halloween. Oh, this is the highest day for Satanists. I'm like, Yeah, I think that's debatable. I don't think Halloween's the only day that evil is present in our world and actively operating. But yet, I'm thinking to myself, and Caleb, I'll do this on the podcast for season 4, is also, okay, let's talk about high holy days, both for religious people like us and for, well, religious people in occultism are religious as well, actually. So let's talk about high holy days. And let's talk about the fact that, are there portals? Yes. Does spiritual activity increase at certain times in certain ways? Sure. But that's hard baked into the Bible as well. The Moedim, the appointed times. You've seen it, I've seen it. Spiritual activity increases positively and negatively on the Moedim. We experience it. I tell you guys every year, strap in, the next Moed is in place, the appointed time, the portals are opening, heaven and hell is going to break loose. That's the reality, like that happens. To single out Halloween as some unique event, that's just not well informed, well educated. And then, as I say, to still be scared of it on top of that, I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, and I think that if I was the enemy, I would want to attack actually the holiest days, try to get people away from worshiping God on those holy days.
Yeah.
So
Look, I mean, ironically, either you doing it, either you're going to do this or I've already just done this. But one or both of us for this interview have or should play devil's advocate, which is an ironic choice of words given the subject matter. But I'm asking, like, is there a way that we can survive a day like Halloween and not have our worlds fall apart and feel like God, has vacated the throne for 24 hours because maybe he's even scared of Halloween with whatever dark element it is? And so my point is, no, I don't think that's necessary. And again, let me be very clear. I haven't attempted to give a full treatment in our interview space. It was an interesting thing to talk about because, yes, it looks controversial. The Halloween gospel. In a nutshell, what do I mean with the Halloween gospel? I think there's good news around graves. I think there's good news around zombies, people coming back from the dead. If you use that term strictly, Jesus is a zombie. If we use that term strictly, Lazarus that Jesus raised is a zombie, figuratively speaking. In the same way, I mentioned eating Jesus' body and drinking his blood. Was that literal? No. But yet there's people around today who struggle with the idea of it because they can't imagine it as anything but literal. Again, portals, spirits, demons, blood, night, darkness, light. Aren't those concepts literally equally found in Halloween and in our gospel? They are. I mean, our gospel pivots on the brutal murder of Jesus. I mean, you don't read in the gospel, oh yes, and they took Jesus to the cross, and sorry, at this point we're going to pause for a PSA, and we're not going to explain further because this is quite gory. We don't want to talk about blood and death and suffering, and the gospel actually pivots on that. The 4 gospels go out of their way. They don't tell us what Jesus did every day of his life. It's not a diary. Yet, you know what it does tell us? That a crown of thorns was plastered onto his head, driven into his forehead. That he was so unrecognizable after being beaten that you couldn't tell he was human. I mean, I don't know. Help me out, Caleb. What sounds scarier? A vending machine child walking up to your front door asking you for candy, or a man being beaten so badly that you can't even see he's human anymore? I'm going with the beaten up guy. Like, I think that's scarier than someone putting a pumpkin on their front door. Like, I don't know. Like, and again, I can only imagine the backlash you'll have to take on your comment section. So, I mean, look, I want to see what your comment section is, and up to you, depending on how electrifying that gets or your feedback. Am I willing to even come back for part 2 of this discussion, especially if people have had a chance to listen to the podcast? Yeah. In fact, here's what I'll even open up to you if it interests you enough. I'll give you the permission and we can talk about this, even clips from my podcast, from the episodes that you can consider just using snippets of, and even find the most controversial things I'm going to say and open it to your audience. I think talking is good. I think that's kind of my point too. The talking is, I wouldn't have done this and asked you to consider this on your podcast if I didn't think that there's something to talk about, that we should talk about. So I don't know. I mean, like, I've spoken a lot. What are your thoughts of this? And be honest with me. If you think I've lost the plot, I'm willing to hear it. Like, what do you think? Am I pushing this too far?
No, I think what I'm getting out of this is, I think separating an event that has clear origins of demonic influence from people who aren't thinking of operating in this event, thinking of those spiritual influences, and they've kind of separated. And I think it was not too long ago that we were talking about, in one of our groups, I'd mentioned how, because I think it was last year, I heard some of the NBA players, they were asked about Thanksgiving, and they were what it means to them, and they would say, "Oh, we're here to meet for food. Like, this is a day where we have friends and family to come together for food." And and that's great. That's a great thing to do. Like, any excuse to go grab food. Technically, that's not really that's not all what Thanksgiving is.
Right.
But am I going to harp on that and say, they're under some demonic influence? No, I wouldn't say that. And so I think that's what I think you're trying to do, is that, yeah, if it's just someone who's dressed up just to go out, grab some candy, like, if we can separate that and realize that most people are thinking in those terms, I think we should recognize that and not poo-poo them for doing those things. So I think that's what you've been trying to say. And do I understand you correctly?
That is it. And again, part of my thinking is, and because I say this often enough, let's try and pursue peace as far as we can. And pursuing peace is not projecting onto my neighbor. Look, if my neighbor tells me, "Hey, we're so excited," and I'm like, "Wow, no, 31st of October is Halloween. We're so excited about teaching our kids about Satanism." Logically, I'm going to have a talk there and say, "Okay, look, I have to draw a boundary line with you now. I love you and your kids, and I'm not going to hide from you that I think you're on the wrong path. But I'm going to respectfully ask that you don't come over to my home for candy or whatever, because I can't clearly promote what you're doing." You hear what I'm saying? Now, that's an extreme case. I don't believe that there's probably, not likely anywhere in the world, that some family's getting up with that intention. "Oh, we're going to go over to the house and what a great opportunity to curse our neighbors. The people that are doing that and are turning that into a satanic high holy day, the irony is, Caleb, they're doing that behind closed doors. They don't want you to know who they are because that's part of their power play. I'm not saying that they don't exist. They exist. Yes. In fact, here's what I do know is a fact. Halloween is probably one, I don't think it's the only one, it's probably one of the days that you can, and people could use as, oh, you see, that's why you shouldn't go trick-or-treating. It's probably the one day that you can expect an elevated number of kidnapping cases, or even, and I know this sounds terrible to say, but family pets going missing. Why? Because for those on the very dark side of this, with that very clear intention, that is a time that they can do sacrifices. And it will happen. It will happen this year. Guaranteed it will happen. Is it enough, though, in a civilized society to put fear into all of us that we should all hide behind closed doors and cling to a crucifix and holy water for 24 hours? Like, is that what we should do? Should that cloud the innocent intention of millions of people around the world who actually just think it's a cool day to dress up weird and have some fun with friends? Like, does that weigh? And I'm leaving that as an open-ended question, because maybe there's people out there who think that is what we should do. And you know what? To them, here's the irony. I want to live in peace with them. So I'm like, okay, Caleb, if that's what you believe, I respect that. If you're my neighbor, I respect that. My Jewish son, my Jewish autistic son, who I can't wait to have the next opportunity to actually engage with other human beings in that way, which I can't get him to do on any, I've got no basis for doing it on any other day of the year. Okay, I'll just tell him not to go to Uncle Caleb's house. And ironically, if he asks me why, I'll protect your integrity and say, no, Uncle Caleb just feels a bit different about this day than we do. I'm going to say, well, Caleb thinks he's so spiritual. Sorry, let me explain to you how wrong he is. See how ironic that is? Because here's what I've discovered over the years too. The people who didn't take it seriously like I was, the people who weren't the Ghostbusters on all these days, they were actually quite compassionate towards me. Like, they were actually like, okay, he feels differently. I'll respect that. The irony was that in my zealousness, I wasn't returning the favor. You know, I used to actually tell him, oh, do you want to promote something from the darkness? Which is, it's condescending. It's unfair when you know it's not true. Does that sow the opportunity that next year Caleb's going to come and say to me, hey, I'm just curious. You're religious. You're a Jew, but you let your kids do the trick-or-treating. Like, I thought you guys would not do that. Guess what opportunity just opens up for me there? I can now tell you, hey, Caleb, I'm glad you brought that up. Because, yes, I have concerns about what's on that day, but also I can't have my kids living in a bubble. So I've got to trust that I teach them right. And on a day like that, I get to see some good humanity. I've met neighbors I wouldn't have met otherwise. Now, I'll be honest with you again, for last year, I first decided I'm just going to sit on my couch. I will leave the candy out front. I won't open the door if people knock on it. People are so polite, Caleb. They first knock on the door. They don't even take the candy, even though it's there. Like I'm hinting, take it. They knock on the door. I'm going to go open the door. And what do I get greeted by? Smiling kids who are over the moon, like this is the best day ever. They get to dress up. They want me to. I must guess their costume. You can see they're waiting for you to say something about it. Their parents are looking on from behind, excitedly nervous. Are you going to be a Grinch, or are you going to just indulge kids? And dare I tell you something, Caleb? I enjoyed the experience. I look forward to kids knocking on my door again so I can open up and say, man, you are a beautiful little princess. Or, what? I'm a fan of the Hulk. I'm so thankful that the Hulk has come to my house. You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that revolutionized it for me, even as recent as last year. Do I get that this will get negative press for me? Yep. Am I ready for it? No problem. If there's people who don't want to take me seriously religiously anymore because I'm not promoting Halloween, I'm not doing that, because I'm saying I think there's a different way to approach it. Okay. Guess what I'm going to say to them? I respect your difference of opinion, which is ironic. I'm going to be compassionate to you and say, okay, I see your side. I respect your, I won't even try and, I'm not going to try and convince you. What I'm doing with season 4 of Strange Gospel is a marketing tactic. I'll tell you now, it's a marketing tactic. I want to talk about the gospel. And I believe I can do it using the elements of Halloween. That's strategic.
Wow.
Am I going to say on the podcast in any of the episodes, please go out and do Halloween? No, I'm not interested in doing that. Caleb, if my little area of my city, my little town was Halloween free, would I care? No. Would I likely be doing this podcast season 4 and talking to you now? No, there'd be less motivation. The motivation comes from the fact, actually, firstly, as I told you, that this ex-Satanist, which I don't doubt is well-meaning, was like, oh, be careful of Halloween. And I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think it needs to be that intense. I don't think you need to. I think if you talk negatively enough about stuff, I think you can create a problem. I think you can empower something that doesn't need to be empowered in that way. So I am being tongue-in-cheek, like cheeky, where I'm going to say, okay, so you think graves and again, witches, all of that. But ironically, Caleb, guess what I can say too? If I see witches or whatever, witch stuff in the supermarkets, whatever, you know what I can tell my son? I can say to him, you know that the Bible's got this in it too, and we get taught that this is just not good. So us Jews are not allowed to do stuff like the witches do. Isn't that a good opportunity? I mean, if I'm walking down the toy aisle and I'm looking at Lego or at a stuffed animal or something, should I just break out, hey, son, I just want to tell you that witches are bad? Where's that coming from? But when it is literally in front of us, okay, now I'm faced with a circumstance. Okay, yeah, boy, why I don't want you to take that costume is because as Jews who believe in Jesus, he has what we believe, and that isn't okay. But hey, a vending machine or a stormtrooper from Star Wars or Hulk, I think there's some buffering there. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a bit of imagination kicking in there that's not. So again, maybe to put people's minds at rest, would I allow my son to overtly wear anything that is clearly demonic? No. I would block that. My wife would block that too. We monitor that. But I want to point this out. On the Jewish calendar, and I encourage Gentile believers who are discovering Jesus is Jewish to do this too. On the Jewish calendar, we have the time of Purim, which is the story of Esther and Mordecai and Haman. Do you know what tradition has come out of that?
You
Is
dress
that
up for Purim.
you dress up. And guess what's in the story of Purim? It's kind of like the freaking purge, Caleb. It's like the Jewish purge. Literally, that might even be a future. Now that I'm saying it, I think that's going to be a future season. Maybe I'll do that around Purim. And it's in scripture. Hey kids, gather around the table. Let's talk about the time that the nations of 127 provinces were invited to slaughter us Jews in our houses. Well, there's a bedtime story to scare the hell out of you. And yet we teach our kids that. You get what I'm saying? So what now? What I'm saying is that there's ways to approach these things. Do we promote what's evil and wrong? No. Do we be responsible? Yes. Would I prefer to live in a world, Caleb, where there's no Christmas, Easter, or any of that? Absolutely. I'd love it. I know the only time I will, though, live in that is when the Messiah comes. And he will eradicate all of those things. And I won't have to navigate them because they won't be there. May it be soon and in our lifetime, may it be next year in Jerusalem. But until then, and I'll close with this unless you've got more to say. Until then, I want to stay at peace. I don't want to look for a reason to panic on certain days of the year. I'm not looking for more reasons to be different to my neighbors and to the people I've got to share this world with. I've got enough reasons to be separate from them. And then two, the more I separate myself from them, what motivation should they have to be interested in hearing about the Jesus I want to talk about? You know what I'm saying? Why should they care? If I think a vending machine on the 31st of October is ungodly, why should they come to church or to synagogue or to a home group study with me on the 1st of November? I mean, honestly, if you presented that to me, I'd struggle not to say, Caleb, are you okay? Like, you turned the 31st of October into this worst thing imaginable. My kids can't come to your door, but the next day you come to mine? Like, I don't think that's logical. I don't expect anybody to respect me if I attempt something like that with them. And then I ask them to come and discover Jesus with me. I mean, but anyway, that's me. That I can't say more than that because that's what will come through in the podcast. And again, I hope you're going to check it out and we'll obviously even just privately be able to talk more about what you see coming out through there. But that's where I will undoubtedly unpack everything with some real detail and say, here's the dangerous stuff, yes. But isn't this interesting about these themes that are actually in the gospel too? And like, what are we going to do with that? Like, can we not talk about that? Is that not something we can address? So yeah, sorry for what might happen in your comment section now, but it will still be interesting to see how that goes down.
Darin, this has been a really, really fascinating conversation. And speaking of your podcast, where can people find your content?
Yeah, so that is on, well, I've got a Teachable site. Let me just make sure that it's actually operating while I'm talking to you. So it should be at Katz Yeshiva. Let me just make sure it's working at this point. Yeshiva.teachable.com. Let me make sure that it actually works if I type it in. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it's there. And one of the first things that does pop up is Strange Gospel Podcast. That will be right there. And then, of course, as I say, there'll be season 4 to look out for. But there's obviously season 1, 2, and 3, which are worth looking at as well. So again, that would be Katz Yeshiva, Katz Yeshiva, YESHIVAH at teachable.com. And then that should get them to to where they can find the podcast. I think too, what I've got, and I don't mind it there really, I invited actually. I think and I'll make sure it is open for anyone who does sign up and join, that they can even comment there. So I'll carry some of the load of the comments that might come through if people want to do it, and I'll share them with you and whatever too. So I'm open to people having opinions on it. They can ask questions, I guess, whatever, say what they concern, if they are. But I'm going to try and use it to actually promote the gospel effectively, because I think it's easy to do. I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And again, the nature of my podcast is for a reason called the Strange Gospel Podcast. That's very intentional, which they'll see if they look at the other season themes on it as well. So yeah, that's it. I look forward to finding out the response you're going to get, or me directly. I mean, people probably try and get hold of me directly too, and I might get rebuked as well. But let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Wow, pursue peace, pursue shalom during this Halloween season. Rabbi Darin Katz, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.